Welcome to the Contract Analyzer. I'm here with Hector Kochek. We are going through a demo of our legal LTL prototype. So what you see right here is a tab called Structure. And what has happened is we've put in an ISDA swap contract that names certain parties, which is an interest rate swap showing one party giving a fixed rate payment and the other giving a floating rate payment. Now, what it's done is this page has pulled out the parties, the events, the obligations, the permissions, the prohibitions. And here you can see actually the parties involved, right? It names them in the type. From there, it's also pulled out obligations and events. So events are, actual events that tie the parties to certain obligations. You have things from trade date, effective date, so on and so forth, ratings events, supplemental, trust instrument, et cetera, et cetera. And obligations are more interesting because they show the exact details on what parties are obligated to do, as well as the intended details around it.
And so, Darren, the formula box there that we see, what is that?
So it's tying to the LTL structure atomically the obligation, the actual party involved, and the events involved. And this is quite nice because then you actually have all the details, the attributes. You can see even the phone number, but it's tying it to a structure. So it's not just the contract by itself and its text. It's put in a sort of kind of a flowchart structure according to logic and events that could happen based on obligations and time constraints.
So essentially what we've done is we've uploaded the contract and the application has extracted the words, turned them into a logical structure, and then queried it to give us all of these.
Actually, now that you mention it, it's probably important that we show you the visualization of it, as it ties all the things in structure into a flowchart that shows what the events are, what the obligations are, according to which party. It's quite powerful to see this because it kind of shows what obligations are assigned to, as well as the events and the time constraints. Essentially, the logical construct of what we just saw in a visual form.
So what this is a visual mapping of that logical structure. So at one glance, you see logically and formalistically what your contract looks like.
Exactly. From there, it's probably important to note that certain tables were extracted from that. It shows which pages these tables were extracted from. If you recall in structure for obligations, it referenced Exhibit A, which shows all the actual periods and payments, the notional value that's happening. It also shows descriptions on what is happening in general for each of these tables. This is actually from reasoning with the actual information in the table. So it's not directly pulled from the table itself, although this information is.
And that's all captured in the references tab, isn't it? Because when we upload a contract, it senses that there's external references to external documents and
exactly.
It identifies them and then extracts that information.
Exactly. So references is actually pulling from the structure obligations to the tables and linking them together. So it says, a reference to Exhibit A was found in this particular obligation.
And so we can then query this structure, can't we? I mean, I know this is a prototype, so we're still working on this, but we can ask it some questions.
So yeah, we're going to ask, what are the payment obligations?
Yeah.
And this is quite nice because when you're dealing with a typical, LLM and contract structure, what is actually happening is it's doing kind of a search, a fuzzy search over the text to give you an answer. In this situation, our querying engine is not searching the actual contract. It's searching the structure that was pulled out of the logical structure that was pulled out of the contract. Then you have a stronger ability to actually reason about what happens. You get details based on that structure. What you don't get is answers that are made up.
So I can see in this extraction, obviously the format can still be worked over, but we can see the references to the parts of the logical structure where these answers are coming from. So essentially, we've got an auditable structure here.
Exactly. So if we ask a question that's like not within the contract, for example, it's like what would happen if a loan isn't repaid? And you and I know there is no loan. This is a question that's kind of out of the box of the contract. Now, if you ask this, the nice thing is because it's asking the structure, it's not going to give you an answer. It's going to say, I don't know. And that's essentially what it does. And if you use a normal LLM for this, it's most likely going to say it does know and make something up on the spot. And that's the difference.
So in terms of what we're looking at here, as we mentioned earlier, this is a prototype, but I think you can immediately see a number of things. One is that when you map the obligations, permissions, and so on onto a logical structure, you then create quite a powerful querying engine out of that. The visualizer that we showed earlier gives you, I think, a really novel way of looking at the chain of obligations inside a contract. And the implication being that later on, once the software develops, you will be able to test your contracts to make sure that those connections actually make sense. And there's a whole heap of other things you can do with a bit of programming time and thought that will help you analyze and understand contracts properly.
Exactly. So like we saw earlier, references kind of extracted when things were referenced, Appendix A or Schedule A, however have you. But later on, when we flesh this out, we'll have that expand so that you can see within almost like the logical form of the contract, these references pulled out and laid bare so that you're not just looking at, look at Appendix A or Schedule A. You're just going to have the answer right there.
I'm sure a lot of people will be quite interested in what this engine can do for their own contracts. It's not just designed for ISDAs, it's designed to take on any kind of contract language.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we look forward to working further on this and seeing what it can really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're interested in kind of working with us and want to become a design partner, just generally curious, please reach out.